The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar, Direct ECAD Integration in PTC Windchill. My name is Alex Janicki. I am Director of Marketing here for TriStar. I'm happy to be joined by Mark Caradonna with XPLM Incorporated. If you have any questions during the webinar, please leave them in the chat, and we'll try to address them at the end of the presentation. We'll have a brief little Q&A. We will be sending a recording of this presentation to everyone on demand, to everyone who registered about a day later or so. It will also be available on tristar.com a couple hours after the session. Before we jump into it, I just wanted to do a little bookkeeping and just kind of go over a couple things. So for those of you not familiar with us, TriStar is a company that specializes in helping manufacturing companies to adopt software systems and processes to enable better and more efficient product development. We achieve this by being the largest value-added reseller for PTC products and services worldwide, with headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, and representatives and engineers throughout North America, Canada, and Mexico. We've been in business for nearly 25 years, and we're experts in CAD, data management, PLM, and product development. We do also offer an assortment of custom solutions specifically kind of tailored to unique requirements and needs. I do encourage everyone to visit tristar.com after the presentation for more information. And with that, I'm not going to waste too much time, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the reins over to Mark, and he'll take it away.
All right, let's see, did I share the right screen? That's always the question.
I think you have it on the other screen.
Screen 2, there we go. Does that look good?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Alex. Thank you for being here today, everyone. Let's talk about integrating your ECAD software with PTC Windchill. So a little bit of organization, about 45 minutes long. Yeah, like we said, go ask questions along the way inside of the webinar interface. We'll answer them at the end. And then we have 2 polls during the webinar, so pay attention when there's a poll screen that comes up, and please give us your input. All right. There's a picture of me. I am Director of Sales and Business Development at XPLM. Prior to joining XPLM, I worked at PTC as a product manager for it was around 11 years. So I have a good background of PTC products, specifically on the ECAD side of things. I was the ECAD product manager. Little bit what to expect here. We talked about TriStar bringing us in today. TriStar is a partner of XPLM's, right? They are a full distribution partner. They can sell our ECAD integrations, and we support them in doing so. We'll talk about the ECAD design data management challenges. Talk about our partnership with PTC, the mothership as well. A little bit about the company XPLM. Who are we? Integrate 2, that's the name of our integration. Talk about that and what it does. Get into functionalities in detail. Who needs the integration? Who benefits from it? And then we'll do the Q&A at the end. Okay. All right. This is the one really just marketing slide of why you need to have a CAD integration. Why can't I just zip up my design data and put it into the PLM system and call it a day? There's a number of reasons for that, and one of the things you really want to make sure you're getting is the value out of your PLM system, right? And if you're getting the value out of your PLM system, you're using it for version control, you're using it for the configuration management, you're using it for your bill of materials, right? You're doing your EBOM to MBOM transition with it, and in order to do all that, you really need to build the complete ECAD data model in PLM. So that's parts, documents for different item or object types inside of your ECAD design, all linked together, right? In order for you to build that data model by hand, it stinks. You don't want to do it, right? That's what the integration does for you, right? It does that for all your users. It's going to build that data model so that you'll have consistency from one user to the next of how your company is putting the data into the PLM system. And it's making it as easy as possible for your electrical engineers or your PCB layout guys to interact with the enterprise PLM strategy at your company. So just to kind of go through each one of these inaccurate or incomplete production data, you'll have defined and automated processes with PLM. Inefficiencies, unnecessary search, leading to repeated work. You have PLM search with structured content. The Gerber files are going to be placed inside of the data structure in the same location for every single design you put into PLM. Errors and inefficiencies due to manual data maintenance. If you had to, manually build your bombs, or you have to manually ensure that the parts inside of your Windchill, your WT parts, are in sync with what is inside your CAD library, there's bound to be errors. One of the things we do is we do a library sync process to ensure that they're in sync with each other. Data gets lost. When we're talking about PLM, it's hard to lose data. We're not talking about file systems. And that's where ECAD guys historically are. They're still working on the file system level, taking a board design and renaming it _RevB. That is not proper configuration management, right? Library getting out of date duplicated, risk throw data, design data, PLM version, control, and several development methods. So we have consistency with both the templates and the data model with every user. So there's a lot of reasons to want to have a proper PLM integration in place. All right, so a little bit about our partnership with PTC. So I want to say as far back as about 2015, PTC changed their strategy where they used to build the PTC ECAD Workgroup Manager product for ECAD, which I was actually the product manager of at PTC at the time. They decided to outsource that to the CAD vendors. And in doing so, they created a REST framework within Windchill and allowed the CAD vendors themselves to build the CAD integrations. And some of the CAD vendors took them up on that offer. Zuken did, Cadence did for their Pulse tools, and so did Altium for Nexus. But all of the other tools out there are supported by XPLM. And we are partnered with PTC to support your Altium designers, all the Mentor Graphics products, Cadence, OrCAD, and Allegro products. And that partnership has been going since 2017. Now, here's the big important note. The current PTC Workgroup Managers are still being sold and supported, but they have been officially end-of-lifed, right? And the end of life is with this 11.1 M20 release. And the end of support on that release is January 2022. So if you are a current Workgroup Manager customer, it's starting to get late to be building your transition plan so that when you move to the next release of Windchill, you are prepared, right? You're prepared to continue allowing your ECAD users to have a proper integration with PLM. And that's where we fit in, to help fill in that gap. There's also another release, I believe it's 11.2 coming out this June-ish, I think. Check the PTC roadmap to be sure, but I think that's the next kind of long-term release, and that one it does not support the Workgroup Manager, right? So you have to transition over to an XPLM integration if you are running any of the CAD tools. And we'll get to the CAD tools again later. I mentioned them, but I'll show them again. Okay, so a little bit about the company first. We're founded in 2005. We're a little bit over 120 people. We do CAD integrations, really, ECAD and MCAD integrations to different PLM systems. That's our core business. And we serve all different industries. And we have a lot of products. This is a lot of CAD tools and there's a lot of PLM systems. Okay, I don't know why that's flashing. Okay. So Integrate 2 is a solution for Windchill. So Integrate 2, again, that's the name of the integration itself. You've got your ECAD tool on the left side, your PTC Windchill on the right side, and the integration is what supports the check-in and the checkout between your end user and Windchill. It's important to note that Integrate 2 is fully embedded inside the CAD tool menu. So unlike the older Work Group Manager from PTC, which was a kind of separate tool you'd invoke off your desktop and run on a separate screen, our integration is fully built into the CAD tool menus with 4 main commands. Create a new project, save your project to PLM, open a project from PLM, or synchronize your libraries. We tried to make this as simple as possible. Right, your electrical engineer should not be able to complain that this is too hard to use to get their design data into the PLM system and contribute to your digitization strategy, right? So the integration itself, it handles all your BOM check-ins, it handles variant BOMs, it creates all your output files right before it does the check-in to PLM. We update the title block of your schematics for you, making sure that the proper part number, any other metadata you want synced from PLM back to the title block, like the version is a good one, right? We make sure the version's up to date before it gets checked in. We make sure any of the Creo view viewables are generated on the client before we do the check-in. So there's a lot of stuff that happens with the integration. We'll give you a BOM comparison. The engineer can see how healthy their BOM is before they're checking it into PLM. So there's a lot of value there in what the integration offers. Okay, here are the tools we support. So I mentioned these tools earlier, right? Altium, Cadence tools, Mentor. We also have Pulsonics. These are all the tools that historically the ECAD Workgroup Manager supported except for Pulsonics. From PTC. So these would be tools that were supported. What PTC never did support, though, is the library synchronization for these tools. So that's an additional, let's say, major functionality you will get with an XPLM integration. The ability to synchronize your Altium DBlib library, your Cadence CIP or CIS library, your DX Databook library, all the different types of libraries, we can synchronize them to Windchill, okay? Now over here on the left side, this is electrical CAD. This is wire harness design CAD tools like SolidWorks Electrical or Mentor Capital Harness, Architect, ePlan. We can also integrate those schematic electrical tools to PLM. It's a little bit simpler than the PCB stuff, but we can do these as well. Whereas in the past, I think there was an answer for ePlan. I don't think there was much of an answer for some of these other ones in the past. So that's the portfolio. Oops, sorry, that was the portfolio. All right, so here's our first poll. Please pay attention to the poll. Anya, just let me know and you think we have enough participation in the poll, and I'll continue along.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're done.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, functionalities in detail. Let's dive in deeper into Integrate 2 and what it has to offer. So I mentioned there's 4 major capabilities, right? And the first one is creating a new project. So you've got your Windchill over here, and you've got your your ECAD user sitting over here with their authoring tool, which is connected to a library, right? And their authoring tool has a local copy of the design data, right? They're working off of on somewhere in their C drive, or it might not even be local. It might be on a shared, excuse me, network drive. But the first thing you do is you create the new project, and when you're creating a new project, it's super simple. You give it a name. This will automatically be filled in based on configuration settings of where your projects normally go. Again, it could be C drive, this could be your shared drive. And you select your starting point. Is your starting point a template that we've built with your engineers that's available through these two pull downs for schematic and layout, the different templates? Is it a design that already exists on your local machine, or is it a design that's in PLM? You know, if you're doing some reuse, you might decide to choose one of these options instead of starting from a blank template. And then after you click the OK button, the next thing you will see as an end user is that design fully, renamed, ready to go. You should not have to go up the disk to your file explorer to do anything to change the design. It's all prepped. You basically can start working inside of the CAD tool immediately because it's launched inside the CAD tool and it's ready to go. So at some point after that, you're working in the design, and you will be ready to save back to PLM. Okay, and in that save, that's when we're going to do that building of the data model, where we create the parts, the CAD documents, and we link them all together on the Windchill side. Right, and you end up with that data model inside of the PLM. So let's show you what that looks like. Here's the save module. Okay, the first section of the save module is where you're selecting your Windchill context. What is a context? You're probably familiar with the terms library, project, or product. Those are the three main context areas in Windchill. And within a library, project, or product, you select, let's just stick with product. Most likely you're putting it in as product. You get your product context, and then you can have a folder within that context that you place the design in, right? And you're simply clicking an assign button here. We pop up a little search that allows you to pick the context and the folder, okay? You do that once, and it's going to stick with the design as well as all the rest of this information you fill in. So you've got this document, this CAD document is the one that will contain your design zip. You've got a bare board part. This represents your naked PCB board with no components on it. And then down here, these are your assemblies. You may have one assembly, or you might have 50 or 100. It depends if you're using variants or not. Okay, so each assembly would represent a different variant. So each assembly is going to have its own assembly part number. So you can see right now in this GUI, these are all blank, right? There's no CAD document, there's no bare board part, and there's no assembly parts assigned. It's as simple as clicking create or assign for each one of these objects to either create it based on the rules set up inside of Windchill, or to assign it based on you finding the object in Windchill and pointing to it. That satisfies most customers. Some customers say they want to be able to type in something here because they've got crazy conventions. It's flexible for us to do stuff like that. I've never met a customer that we had to say, no, we can't do your crazy naming convention. So after you create or assign each one of these, right, you're now linked your design data to the PLM data. And you click OK. Actually, not click OK. You then check off what you're actually going to check into the data model, right? These are like the files you're checking in to your PLM objects. So the design data itself, the zip of your design, your Gerber files, a manufacturing file format or two, additional options you have. Down here, this will be the information you want to put onto your assembly objects, right? Do you want your bill of materials for one or more variants? So you make all those decisions. So after the first time you run the save, all you're really doing is you're just selecting these checkboxes right here of what you're trying to check in. And if you're super lazy, you click select all, it selects them all, and you click OK, right? And then after this, you get the BOM comparison that shows you how good of a shape your BOM is in. In this case, it's the first time you're checking it in. It shows the bare board part, and there is a connector that's a part that's missing, right? So I can choose to say cancel and make sure that I go through a proper new part introduction process, which would most likely involve our library sync, which would then add this part to the PLM system, then allowing me to run the save again and getting that part actually added as part of the BOM. Because if it's missing, it cannot be added to the BOM. It's just not a part in Windchill to be added to the BOM. So this is giving you intelligence of how healthy your BOM is before you check it in. All right, so now you've saved your design to PLM. What are we talking about here? So you're looking at the save dialog, and now this is kind of on the electrical side. The electrical side dialog is a little bit different, okay? So we've kind of switched from electronic, right, which was this guy, right, to electrical, which is those wire harness tools, okay? It's very similar, but there are some slight differences. There's no bare board object that's sitting in here, for example, because there's no board, right? But you can see we handle different, there's different terminology here too. These aren't called variants anymore. They're called different groups. So the design of the GUI is very similar between electronic and electrical, but it is tailored towards electrical users. Okay. Now, whether you're on electrical, electronic, and you want to open a design out of PLM, let's say you're back from 2 weeks vacation, you need to open a design up as an engineer to work on, or it could be 2 years later, that's an ECO on an old design, engineering change order, that you need to make some changes. So you need to bring that design back into CAD. Where do you want to get that design from? The Bob's C drive, or the version controlled information inside of your PLM system that's your source of truth? Hopefully it's obvious the latter is the right answer. So how do you get it out? You go to the open command, again, directly from within the CAD tool. You're going to invoke open, all right? It gives you a little dialog where you can type either the name or the ID, the PLM ID of the object. It gives you the options based on your criteria, which could include wildcards, right? And then you select the one you want, and then that CAD design will bring itself back down from Windchill into your onto your desktop, and it will launch it actually inside the CAD tool for you to work on. You do get to check if you want this to be read-only, or if you're checking it out for editing. If you do, there's a little dialog, there's a little radio button behind this dialog. If you check it out for read-only, basically you're not checking out a PLM, so any changes you make, you wouldn't be able to then save back. You would get an error when you try to save it back. So that's it on the actual CAD data back and forth. Now we're talking about synchronization of parts, okay? That's the piece that's going to keep your library metadata in sync with the parts that show up in your bill of materials, okay? So your resistors, capacitors, your memory, all those parts. Now, synchronized parts, here's the GUI for it, okay? But most customers will set this up to run in a batch automation mode, okay? Whether that is batch to run as part of a overnight process or every 4 hours, it's up to you. We'd work with our services guys to determine that. Or if you really want to get fancy, you can actually set it up to run from within your PLM workflows. So workflows that have to deal with parts, like a new part introduction, part obsolescence, or part change request, okay? Any of those that may change the status of a part or the metadata on that part, would then run the synchronization to ensure anything that changed inside of Windchill was reflected back down into your CAD library. And it's important to note that this thing is extremely flexible. Some customers will say, Windchill is my source of truth for my part metadata. Okay, the resistance, tolerance, everything, all that data is owned by Windchill, and that's my source of truth. Some customers will say, no. My CAD library is where that data, that's all authored, and I just want to push some of that data into Windchill. It doesn't matter what type of customer you are, in a sense, because our integration supports both of those types of use cases. You can have the library the master, the PLM the master, or both could be the master, and if anything changes, it just updates the other, right? So it's a bidirectional synchronization, and it's also capable of adding new parts. So if you're starting off on the with a new part being added to your CAD library, you can run the synchronization, have it give a PLM part number to it, so you get a Windchill part number, and then that Windchill part number makes its way back down to the CAD tool library, all in one synchronization run. Right, so you can actually issue new Windchill parts on the fly based on your based on the auto numbering system that you have set up in Windchill.
And Mark, while you're on the slide, we did just get a question real quick. Might be easier just to go over it. Would this work on every EE part, or for this to work, does every EE part need to be a part in Windchill?
So let's go back to the save dialog, okay? When you go back to the save dialog for ECAD, this one. So inside of Windchill, you're going to have your master assembly part. Let's just assume there's one variant, okay? That's the top level of your bill of materials. So think of that as being the top level, and underneath this part number, you'll see the tree, and it'll be all the resistors, capacitors, ICs. The first thing in that tree, though, is going to be the bare board part. Okay, so these are two special parts, right? These are created by the integration when you're saving the PLM, the bare board part and your assembly part. Now, I could do a check-in, right, where I just create this and this, and I see my BOM in Windchill is just an assembly, right, with one bare board part on it, and that's it. Now, if I click the BOM button, now it's actually going to try to generate the full bill of materials underneath my assembly, right? All the resistors, capacitors, ICs, diodes, connectors, all that good stuff, right? These are the parts I'm talking about when I'm talking about synchronized parts, right? All of those components that exist inside of your ECAD library, they have footprints, they have symbols. We don't touch the footprints or the symbols data. Okay, what we synchronize is the metadata. So you can see some of the metadata would be like the PLM part number, maybe the name of the footprint or the name of a symbol, or resistance or tolerance, or this list can get really long depending on how many attributes you have and how many attributes you want to sync to your Windchill system. Your need might be just to sync some very limited data like, part number, version, and description. That's fine. Other customers, they might want to sync every single, 50 different attributes between PLM and the library because they want to be able to do some intelligent, crazy searching inside of the PLM system. Alex, I
think that answered the question. If you want to go back to slide 17, we had another question just while you're there. It might be easier. I'm not sure I totally understand the question. They're asking, where is SCH in this screen?
So this guy right here, this is the CAD document that will have the design data on it, okay? This right here, this upload design, that is going to be the zip file that contains your PCB and your schematic. So when you say SCH, I assume we're talking schematic.
Gotcha.
With Windchill, there are 2 data models. I think that's something better left for a more detailed discussion when we do let's say a direct demo for your company. But we do support the schematic being zipped separately on a separate CAD document than the PCB layout. Some customers like that, having that additional flexibility for configuration management. You can release the schematic before you release the layout, for example, and you can rev control them separately. It does increase complexity slightly, but it's up to you whether or not that complexity is worth the additional flexibility you get with the 2-zip model versus a 1-zip. So this is really like the 1-zip model, right?
Perfect.
And notice, I didn't really talk about this, but notice this like extra. It's just going to show the configurability here. If I don't do Gerbers or I don't do ODP++ and all I have is IPC 2581, we eliminate all this stuff from the interface, right? We'll just show what's pertinent to you and your teams, right? But the idea of extra is we can add additional items here if there are additional things you're trying to check into the PLM system.
Perfect. And then can like part 1 have options for different footprints?
Options for different footprints would be, oh boy, how do you handle options for different footprints?
I mean, if you're not sure right now, we can definitely
for your part, right? It's let's say it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
And if you've got a bunch of different footprints for that part, what I've seen, like you might have like a -1 to represent one footprint or a -2 to represent another. If the footprint of the part actually requires it to have a separate part number. Otherwise, if not, you would just have a single part, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that represents the purchasing of that part, and you don't really worry about the how it's actually placed until you start looking at maybe the pick and place information or something else down the road. That might not have been the best explanation. Again, that's something that probably would be best discussed in a more like a one-on-one demo situation.
For sure. And then as far as like what about the hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, the Altium project file?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so that gets zipped up and put into the design container. That project file is one of the reasons that if you were using Altium, we'd probably try to steer you away from 2-zip, right, and stick with a single zip approach. Some of the CAD tools are, let's say, better tuned to work with the schematic and the PCB being done independently, like Cadence Allegro flow. You can easily separate out the Allegro BRD file. But with Altium, like both the schematic and the PCB both kind of want to write to that project file. So we'd probably recommend you a single zip approach to handle that. Excellent. Another way to do this, by the way, is you assign one engineer. Let's say you've got 2 guys working on a design, one's doing the schematic, the other guy's doing the layout, and they're both working at the same time. You assign a role, and the schematic guy would wear the hat of, let's say, integrator. He is the guy that's going to do all this check-in and check-out with the PLM system, and he'll make sure that the PCB guy is good when he goes to check it back in, right? So he would check his design out, let's say, when he does the open, he opens it and he saves it to target directory of shared drive. The 2 guys can work on it, and when he's saving it, when the schematic guy would be the one to save it back in when he gets a separate OK from the PCB layout guy. All right, so that's another way to have multiple users working on the single design and still kind of work within the flow of using the PLM system without having to separate out the PCB and the schematic into two separate designs.
Now, would you still see the Altium DSN preview of the schematic if the one-zip approach is done?
Alex, do we lose you?
No, sorry. I was just saying, can we still see the Altium DSN preview of the schematic if the one-zip approach is done, if it's done that way?
A preview. If it's a one zip, you want to see a preview. I guess I would need to understand more what a preview is, what's meant by a preview.
We could probably keep going, but maybe they can.
Yeah, elaborate on that question, please.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm not sure what was being asked in there.
But yeah, thanks for answering that. We could probably keep it going.
Yeah. Okay. So I was down here on the library, right? So we were explaining there's three sections to our library interface. If you are running it manually, you know, again, unless you're a really small customer, most customers automate this thing. You can just type in a part number you want to bring in. You can bring up another dialog that says, here's all the classes in your library. You can bring an entire class at once if you want to bring in a whole class of parts, like all your resistors or ICs. And then the last way to bring in parts is to say, up here, when I ran the save, up here, sorry, up one more. When I ran the save and it showed this missing part right here, there's a way for you inside of the library sync to say, show me parts missing from a specific BOM check-in, right? And you'd point to this BOM check-in right here, and it would load that part into the interface, allowing you to then sync that part to the PLM system. I mean, so once you have parts loaded, they're all color-coded, red, green. You know, red is, I'm gonna get this wrong. I think green exists only on PLM, red's only in PLM, green's only in CAD, blue exists in both places, but there's something different about it, and you'd see the difference over here, because we'd also highlight this line as blue, that's different. In black, it's fully synchronized. This doesn't look fully synchronized, but according to the rules that were set behind this component, right, it wasn't set to synchronize anything other than these first three attributes. All right, so it's all rules driven from some files in the background. Okay. All right, direct integration approach. So this is showing you how you access the integration from the CAD tool menu. Okay, so this is an Expedition. Here's an Altium menu. You know, an OrCAD, just showing you all the different CAD tools, but basically it's the same thing in each one. Create the new project, save it, open it, or synchronize parts. And we would eliminate synchronized parts for most customers as well that are using it in, let's say, batch mode only. All right, let's show a few videos here so you can see some of the stuff live. So here's creating new project live. Well, not live, but live through a video. So we go in. We're giving it a name. Looking at our template, we're going to select the template we want. Notice the log on the bottom. That event log is in all of our dialogues. So if anything ever goes wrong or something's taken a long time, you'll see what took a long time. And if something goes wrong, it would be either yellow or red over there in the status, you know, down here. So it's nice, you know, it's like, it's better than just having a log shot out to the disk somewhere that you have to go find. Okay, that's it. You know, after that, it would load the design in the CAD tool. All right, so next, saving to PLM. So this time you're assigning the context. So your product, which folder in the product, ECAD design. Yeah, there you go. You click create on that CAD document. You click create on that part for the bare board. You click which variants you want. You can create them both at once, which is what you're doing now. And that's it. You click select all, you select which checkboxes you want, or you click select all and deselect a few. Click OK. And now it's going to check in all that data into PLM and build the data model if it's the first time, which it probably is. It'll build that data model. And you've got that event log over there telling you what's going on. And that was all live, folks. You know, we didn't cut the video short there. It's actually brought up the BOM comparison, telling you what's being added to the BOM, all those green objects, and what's missing. You know, there's a lot of missing parts in this example that you'd probably want to go and address before you check it in, unless you're doing an early BOM and you know those parts should be missing and you're okay with it. So the engineer can make the decision based on what he sees. You click cancel on that BOM window though, and it will cancel the entire check-in, right? Or you clicked OK like you did here, and it will check it in. Notice these show buttons. I don't think we really show these in the demo, but you know, after this thing is done checking in, you click on show and it'll bring you directly to the assembly inside of Windchill, or directly to the bare board. It basically makes it easy for you as an engineer. You don't have to necessarily remember how to traverse Windchill and go from one object to another. If you need to get to something, you need to get to your Gerbers, you can click on the edit button and we'll show the document that's behind that part, and you can go directly to the document even. Okay. And I think the next one's going to be opened. Oh, did I skip one? Sorry. Save. Oh, I guess I didn't skip one. Synchronized parts. Okay, so we don't show open, we go right to synchronized parts. All right, see this 19 missing files from the last BOM? That means we're looking at all those parts that are in that BOM that we're missing, right? And they're all green because they're only on the CAD tool only. We click a few of them, we say synchronize, and now they've been synchronized to the PLM system. In this case, there was a couple of additional, let's see, now we're showing you how to add additional classes. If you want to add more items by class to your list of parts that you can then potentially synchronize. Okay. But after you click on that synchronize button, you can go in and you can see directly inside of the CAD library or the PLM system the changes were actually made. All right, we're at our second poll point here. Please pay attention to the poll.
Okay, last poll for today. So thank you very much. You can go on, Mark.
Thank you. All right, so who needs this integration? There's a slide here that talks about some of the users within your company, right? So clearly your electronic development teams, whether it's your electrical engineers or your PCB layout guys, this is going to give them consistent version control of their design data that they kind of lack when using, the old C drive approach. It's going to give them the ability to basically feed the rest of the enterprise with the design data, right? The BOM that needs to go to procurement. It's going to put viewable files into PLM. We didn't really talk about that, but the Creo view schematic and the PCB are both generated when you save to PLM. Right, so that the viewables can be in there for reviews, whatnot. Your product development people, so people that are kind of managing the overall product, they can look at those Creo view files. They can get visibility into how the BOM's progressing throughout the design stages that you go through. IT, IT likes this because they don't have to build you a homegrown integration. We have years and years of experience, and we've seen it all, and we built a lot of it into the product and what it supports. A couple of customers that we have today that are referenceable customers. Stratec, they did an integration of their Windchill to Cadence OrCAD, giving them the single source of truth of their Cadence OrCAD data inside of their PTC Windchill 11 system, and their Windchill 11 is also connected to an SAP environment. Another one, Huseman, probably said that wrong, sorry. They've got one of our electrical integrations, so they did an E-plan integration. Not my customer. This is one over in Europe, so I don't know much else to say, honestly. I think we get some time left for Q&A, though. Were there some few additional questions, Alex, that came up during the presentation?
Yeah, there were a couple. So I'm just going to hold here for questions. In the meantime, this is just kind of piggybacking off the question we had earlier. Basically, can you still see the Altium DSN preview of the schematic? In Workgroup Manager 10.2, you can see a preview of the schematic and the PCB layout by hovering over the project icon.
Yeah, so that's all about, I believe that has to do with the CreoView stuff, right? So all the CreoView stuff is still supported, with our integration here.
Perfect. And then how do you handle multiple suppliers for one component?
That is more of a Windchill question, right? So the fact is our synchronization can handle the situation where if you're using PartsLink to do classification, we can handle that when syncing to your CAD library. And we can also handle the SUMA package. So SUMA stands for Supplier Management, and that's where AVL and AML get added to Windchill, allowing you to link a part, like your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 part for your resistor, could have a link to 3 different manufacturers that make that resistor for you, and 2 distributors that you buy it from. Right? I think the AML is the manufacturer link, and the AVL would be the vendor link where you buy them from. So that's all built into Windchill, right? If you've got the right flavor of it.
Perfect. And then does this tool, run a new Gerber data before checking in each time?
If you select that box that says give me my Gerbers, it will run the scripts in the background to generate the Gerber files upon the check-in.
Perfect. And then I guess this is almost more of a statement, but so is Creo schematics, it's not supported with this tool?
It's not. In fact, there is another partner of PTC's that is handling Creo schematics. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but if you reach out to the PTC partner folks, they should point you in the right direction.
Okay, perfect. Does this tool, does it allow multiple engineers to work on the same design?
Actually, it's a company out of the UK.
For the schematics.
And if you're a member of the technical committees for PTC, I believe the guy, is it UK or Ireland? Oh man, somewhere in Britain. Yeah, he I think he's heavily involved in that. So I'm sorry, what was the next question?
Does this tool allow multiple engineers to work on the same design?
So, as I was explaining earlier, you can check out the design to a shared file system and just work kind of normally like you would, and then have that person that's wearing the integrator hat make sure all the other users are good, and then you can check it back in. that's the level of concurrent design we would support. If you need something above and beyond that, that's why the CAD vendors themselves are coming out with those tools like Altium Nexus, Cadence Pulse, Mentor EDM. Those are the, let's say, whip level tools sold by the CAD vendors that enable, let's say, a more complete, cohesive, concurrent design story. But it's more money, it's more complexity. But if it's what you need, right, to get your job done, then I'd say that might be a reason for you to look into one of those systems.
Perfect. And then, is it fairly easy to migrate existing LTM libraries?
Yeah, so Altium libraries, there's a whole bunch of different flavors. The most basic is what we call the schematic lib, a bunch of files sitting in a folder. The next step up is the DB lib, where you've got a basic database library. And that's still free, right? It's just a matter of then converting your schematic lib to a DB lib. But the DB lib level is really the level you should be at to have a good connection to PLM, right? We would sync up that database library to your Windchill parts, and then, yeah, let's leave it at that.
Got it. Looks like we may have been, that may be it. Probably a whole year moment. We did get one more, the important question here. What does something like this generally cost, like for the implementation?
Yeah, so the price of this is really around what the old Workgroup Manager cost. You're looking at the price for one user for 1 year subscription is around $1,400. Okay, and that's one named user. Now that price goes down with volume, right? So we've got a volume calculator we apply, and the library sync is around it's around 8,000 or so for a subscription of that, with the batch mode enabled to make it work in the background.
Perfect.
So those are really the two kind of costs, and then you'd have the services costs to help you get it up and running.
Excellent.
You don't want to leave you with the software without services. I saw too many customers stuck not using the old ECAD Workgroup Manager because they never bought the services to get it implemented. It's just a waste.
Absolutely. Just in general, I guess, as it's going to vary, but how much work is involved, would you say, in preparing existing assembly project data to integrate this tool?
That's going to really just be part of the services that we offer, right? Where we sit down and we configure the tool to work inside of your environment, right? So we have to make sure that it's set up to work with your naming conventions, your part numbering schemes, the output files that you want to generate. If there's some workflow stuff it has to work with as well. I'm probably missing something here or there, but for the most part, you can set this up in an environment, have it working out of the box fairly quickly. It's all the configuration to meet your kind of your specific needs that take some time on top of that. Yeah,
absolutely. And then this is just a question about the end of life. So Workgroup Manager, PTC is actually going to be discontinuing support for Workgroup Manager as of December 2021. One of the questions is, I guess, what does that mean if people do not upgrade Workgroup Manager by that date?
I would think if you are a Workgroup Manager customer, right, you do not want to be using Workgroup Manager all the way up until that date. Sure, you can probably submit a support ticket up until that date, but the day after, they'll say that this product's end of life, and we're no longer taking any support calls for it. So you should have a transition plan in place, and the sooner the better, because I have a feeling there's probably too many customers out there that are waiting last minute to to convert over, and you don't want to be stuck in a line.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate that it is December of this year that PTC is discontinuing support. So definitely something to look into sooner than later. And another question we have here, it sounds like we would have to remove existing configuration first, then reconfigure for your system. Is that correct, Mark?
Existing config. I assume you mean like existing configuration of a workgroup manager. It depends on how you configured your workgroup manager, but there's a good chance that our integration could actually open a design that was checked in by the workgroup manager. Right? That's the type of thing we should talk on how you implemented the workgroup manager. If that's a deeper level discussion for us to have directly. And by the way, this is we keep things at a higher level at the webinars here. We can go to a level deeper and give your company a let's say a more personal demonstration, a live demonstration, and we're happy to do that. And that's something you'd work through. You can contact me directly, but the best way to do it would be to contact TriStar. Your salesperson at TriStar, let them know you saw this webinar, and let them know you'd like to investigate the XPLM ECAD integration further.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have questions later, definitely feel free to visit our website, tristar.com. Just reach out. We can get kind of a more personalized demo about specific features you may need. And then when you say workgroup manager is going end of life, is this only related to the ECAD workgroup manager?
That's correct. Do not worry about your MCAD workgroup managers at all. That the end of life is ECAD only.
Okay, so if someone's using, say, SolidWorks with Windchill, it's not talking about that workgroup manager.
Nope.
Perfect. All right, I think that may be it, and we're kind of heading towards the end. And yeah, again, we definitely connect with us after this webinar for customized demo. And with that, I think we're probably about there. I did want to just kind of one last time mention we will be everyone that registered is going to receive a copy of this, but probably later today, if you visit tristar.com and just go to our webinar replay library, there'll be a copy of it, right at the top here. So if you have any colleagues or anything that you think, would like to see this, definitely feel free to check it out. With that, I think we're good. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your week. And Mark, thank you so much. That was a great presentation.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And hopefully we'll hear from you in the future.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.